Starting today, millions of families across America, including some 1.3 million in Illinois, will begin to receive monthly payments from the IRS as part of President Joe Biden's revamped child tax credit program. The monthly payments between $250 and $300 per child for eligible families will last through the end of the year, although Biden hopes to make the payments permanent. Here's a little of what he said about the program today.
This would be the largest ever one-year decrease in child poverty in the history of the United States of America. It's one of the largest ever single tax cuts for families with children. And it's a reflection of our belief that the people of this country who need a tax cut aren't the folks at the top.
Now, joining us with more are Megan Dugan Bassett, who is one of the founders of the Get My Payment Illinois Coalition, formed to help people get their stimulus checks. She is also a fellow at the New America think tank based at the Chicago Community Trust. And Harish Patel, Director of Economic Security for Illinois, a nonprofit, nonpartisan group that advocates for policies to benefit working people. Now, let's go over what the expanded child tax credit includes. It's $250 for each child ages 6 to 17, $300 for each child under the age of 6. And those payments will be given to single parents earning up to $75,000 or single parents considered the heads of their household earning just up to just over $112,000 and couples earning up to $150,000. Harish, let's start with you, please. Is there an argument that these payments should be more targeted toward those on the lower scale of income?
First of all, thank you for having us. And it is a good day. Had a lot of people, a lot of families who have been struggling through the pandemic are going to get a check or a direct deposit in their account, and it's worthy of celebration. And I'm really glad that you all are taking time to talk about this. I absolutely think that cutting child poverty in half, as the President talked about at the top, is really important. But we also know that there's a lot of other families that are going to use this money for childcare and savings for college, what one may say middle-class families. So both families who make no income, are low income or close to a zero income, all the way up to middle-class families, all have needs. The cost of living and cost of raising children have gone up. And what the government is saying is it's really hard work to parent, to raise kids. And here's a little bit of support. So covering 90% of families in Illinois who would be getting it is absolutely the way. I don't think that any shorter target would help. And also, it's really important that in the pandemic, we create the cushion that families need to not only for savings, but to spend that money.
And
because
Harish,
giving them money to spend is probably going to benefit our small businesses.
now, as you mentioned, this is going to expected to have a huge impact on child poverty, at least temporarily, from what we know so far, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. But how many families and children in Illinois are going to benefit from this?
We know that about 2.5 million children in Illinois will be directly benefiting in some way, shape, or form in some families in Illinois. And it's going to impact 46% of those are going to be lifted out of poverty.
Megan, let's talk about how you get it. Do people automatically qualify? Do they have to sign up for it?
Great question, and thanks for having me also. So for people who have already done taxes in the past, so 2019, 2020 taxes, or people who use the non-filer tool that the IRS put out last year to help people get their stimulus checks, they should get it automatically. We have heard that some people getting Social Security or SSI may not get it automatically. For people who aren't in that group that are going to get it automatically, people should. There's two things people can do. So one, if people have earned income, they think that they're eligible, they have maybe a higher income, and they can wait. They may want to file taxes. That would put them in line. For people who really need that advanced monthly payment, they're maybe in a bad position. Also, people who are non-filers, so they're people who earn so little they don't have to file. There is a tool that the IRS has created called the non-filer tool that will help people claim that, and they can go on the IRS website and basically sign up for the advance payment.
Now, Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, she promoted this program today, warning of scammers. Here she is.
Beware of scams. The Internal Revenue Service, IRS, you are not going to get a call from the government. If you get a call and people say, oh, but we have to have some of your personal information, hang up. Do not give that information.
Megan, how wary of scammers should people be?
I think people should be very wary. There's always scammers that jump up with any new form of money, and we've seen more and more scams created as the stimulus checks came out, and so people do need to be very careful. If they get someone coming to them saying, "We can help you on behalf of the IRS," that's one thing the IRS has been warning about is. You don't need anyone to do it on your behalf. You can do it yourself. And that's what we really try to give people the tools to do at getmypaymentillinois.org, as well as on the childtaxcredit.gov is a government website that has a lot of really great resources for people.
Now, we know that immigrant families won't be able to get the tax credit if their child does not have a social security number. Harish, is there any pushback against that to ensure that those families are also able to benefit?
Yeah, I think that's important to share with people that if you're a mixed status family, so let's say you're an undocumented family, but you have an ITIN number, an individual tax identification number, and your child has a social security number, then you do qualify, and you should absolutely make sure that you fill out your ITIN file and or go on the website, the Child Care Credit website, to apply and get it. Now, for folks, we do think that for folks who are undocumented but do not have ITIN number or children with a social security number, absolutely should qualify. And we know that there is a pushback from some legislators that think that any child in America should absolutely be getting this, because we know that not only that this will benefit them, but many of the public health reasons to get folks the cash so they can go, let's say if you're a 14-year-old and your mom needs that extra cash to get you to that appointment, to get you that vaccine, that's exactly what we would want as a public health response. And we think that child tax credit should be expanded to all families, regardless of their immigration status.
Now, we know that, at this moment, this is a temporary measure through the end of the year, but President Biden would like to see it extended as part of his American Families Plan. Megan, how tough is that fight going to be? Is there, bipartisanship on this issue?
I feel like this is a really great question for Harish. I'm going to add one thing before I turn it over to him. But I think, one of the challenges that President Biden faces is that historically tax credits have been really appealing to both Republicans and Democrats because Republicans have seen it as an incentive to work. So that's what we consider one of the benefits of this bill is that for people who are really struggling and don't have income, they can still get this credit. But that is, a concern for some Republicans. I think that view misses that there are tons and tons of benefits, long-term benefits for children that will feed back into our economy. So they do better in school. They're more likely to make more wages in the future when they get these tax credits. So I think that's maybe a short-sighted way of looking at it. I think it's conjecture right now. We don't know for sure. We also know that a lot of these tax credits are work incentives for multiple reasons. But I'm sure Harish has some great things to add to that.
I would love to hear what Harish has to say, but we're actually out of time, so I'm going to have to leave it there. But thank you so much to Megan Dugan Bassett and Harish Patel for joining us.